Hey, everybody. It is me, Alviana Brewster, and boy, do I have a treat for you today. Welcome. I wanted to say hello and welcome to everybody. This is our podcast called BNE Presents the Trend. We had just entered into our season 3, and this is actually episode number 36, titled the top 10 mistakes that overwhelmed nurses are making. So for those of you who are maybe new to our community or don't know who I am Alviana Brewster, the CEO of Black Nurse Entrepreneurs, the premier organization for Black nurses who are interested in launching, building, and growing their entrepreneurial endeavors worldwide. Okay, so I'm presenting to you one of my BNE Elite members today. Her name is Audrey Boyce, and boy, does she have a message for you today. So first, before I bring her to the stage, I would love to introduce you to her. Introduce her to you, or the other way around, one or the other. I'm going to introduce my friend, and I want you to just listen to this list of an amazing accomplishments and the things that she has been able to do. But I love her passion for trying to help nurses, helping us, because listen, the things that she talks about, I wish I would have known about 20 years ago, but it is what it is. I have her now. So let me introduce her really quickly. Audrey Boyce, RN. She is the founder and CEO of Audrey Boyce LLC, which brings over 30 years. This is a 30-year span of nursing experience. She is a best-selling author of the book Top 10 Mistakes Overwhelmed Nurses Make. Her diverse background spans through hospitals, through home care, hospice, senior living, and faith-based organizations. Audrey serves as a leadership coach, redefining leadership and communication skills for nursing and healthcare leaders. Additionally, she guides nurses in prioritizing self-care to maintain their careers while nurturing what truly matters. An engaging speaker, Audrey's journey resonates at the conferences that she's been at, the churches, the retreats, schools. Audrey's been everywhere, inspiring audiences to reach impactful goals. Available as a speaker, wellness, and leadership coach, Audrey's mission is to ignite personal growth and transformation. We need it all, okay? Without further ado, let me go grab my good friend and BNE Elite extraordinaire, Mrs. Audrey Boyce. Hold on one second. Let me grab her. There she is. Hey, Audrey, how are you today?
I am wonderful, Aviona. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And wow, as I listen to that bio that you read, I'm thinking, wow, how does the time fly?
Yes.
How does the time fly? All the things I've done, I did not set out to do it. I just put one foot ahead of the time, learned along the way, and was so committed to the whole idea of personal growth and development.
You know, I'm glad that you said that. Before we dive in, tell our audience how you even got started, even in the nursing journey, and what has kind of led you to this moment right now.
Thank you so much. Becoming a nurse was my dream, but how did that dream started? I was 8 years old when I helped a blind man cross a very busy intersection. And I felt so happy that I had made a difference. It was at that time I decided I wanted to be a nurse. I applied for nursing school right after graduation, got in, and then my hopes were dashed. You see,
Really?
my dad, he looked at the application. He looked at the application and he said, "You will have to serve a stint national service." And that was in my country. Now, the national service was notorious for having such a bad reputation that my dad said, "You are not going to be a nurse." I was disappointed. But you know what? It didn't keep me down. I had my plan B. I decided to become a teacher. And I taught for 5 years. But fast forward, I came to America. And the moment I touched these United States of America, I said, guess what? I am going to follow my dream. And so I applied for nursing school, got in, and the rest is history. So I made that point to take you through that little journey to let people know when you have a dream, it might sometime not come true, it might be on hold, but never stop pursuing that dream if that is something that you've been led to believe is your dream. So yes.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So, what age were you when you going to the United States?
I was the age of a ripe 25 years old.
Okay. So you were grown when you came over.
Yes, but yes, I was.
Gotcha. Okay. So did you do any teaching at all?
You know, when I came to America, while I was in nursing school, I did work at a Y after school program. And
Mhm.
so I did enjoy working with the kids, but I realized it was not where my true passion lied, but it was something I enjoyed doing. And so while in nursing school, I worked after school in a after school program.
Gotcha. Okay. So take me through your journey as a nurse, right? Because obviously, all of us, I read your bio, you've got a wide variety of experience in nursing, but I feel like there's a little bit more that's deeper into it. And I want the audience to get a sense of your journey as a nurse, and then also kind of what has led you to what has it been within your nursing journey that has led you to this moment now?
Yes. Thank you, Aviona. So, as I said, I became a nurse and I got married, had a family, and those were my joy. So, while working as a nurse, raising a family, and my husband was also working in business, which I helped along. So, being a nurse, you never just operating in a silo. You're always doing so much. That's just our nature. So I'm helping in the after school program. I'm helping as a PTA. And while doing all that, still being a nurse, I work nights and weekends. And I did it for years, many years,
Mhm.
until I started to feel overwhelmed. I started to feel exhausted. I remember one Friday night on my way to work, I was so exhausted and I wanted to turn around, but I kept on going. And that night, while I was at work, taking care of my patient, doing the very best I knew how, I realized I had lost my joy.
Mm.
And that morning when I clocked out, I realized I had to make a change. Now, this has been 15 years into nursing, and it didn't start that night, but over the years, just continuing to pull through it and even becoming to make it normal. That the feeling of overwhelm and exhaustion, and gosh, when it's time to go to work, it's like, yes, I'm going, but the joy started to just disappear. And I realized that I had to do something. So I stepped away from nursing for a brief moment. And when I stepped away from nursing, I had to make self care a priority. I got a coach, I worked with a coach. And after working with that coach, I realized what I had gone through, that there were so many other nurses that were going through it. And it was then that I decided I love being a nurse. I will always be a nurse, but I can now help my nursing colleagues to make a change in terms of what they were going through themselves. So when I returned to nursing after 1 year, I was able to provide support for my nursing colleagues and help them to realize that self care was needed in order for them to live that balanced life, that purposeful life, and to regain their joy for nursing.
Gotcha. So what I hear from you is taking the time off to kind of do a little bit of, well, take a break, obviously, do a little bit of self-care, self-rediscovery, maybe things like that. Um, I wish, honestly, it's interesting that you say that that burnout moment kind of happened to you about halfway through your career at about year 15. Honestly, that burnout moment happened to me within about 6 months of being a nurse. I wish I could have lasted 15 years before it happened, but it happened. And so I think it's important too to highlight that that burnout moment can happen at any stage of your nursing career. It could happen very early on, or it could happen later on down the line. The reality is it could happen. And so I think because we don't spend enough time on the preventative measures of it. We almost just allow it to happen and then boom, it's too late whenever we realize, oh my gosh, I'm in full-fledged burnout and maybe a tad bit of depression on top of it type of thing. So first off, I wanted to say thank you for even contributing to trying to help, because so many, like you say, so many of your coworkers, so many of my coworkers have been in that moment, and it really created kind of a bitterness in me. It really did. I'm so glad now I don't really feel like I used to, but I think it's important that we do some of the things to prevent it, but also ongoing management. So that leads me to, what are you doing now? Well, let's back up a little bit, because you said you came back after that year and you started helping, but what led you into actually launching this as a business endeavor, though?
Well, I did not launch it initially as an endeavor. I just started helping my nursing colleagues. I was then coaching them. I didn't go through a formal coaching program at that time, but just what my coach had taught me, I was talking to them about. And that was about self-care, about setting boundaries, about really taking care of yourself. And even though I came back knowing self-care, I did not fully do everything I needed to do. And like everything else, if you do not maintain that self-care, once again, it would creep up. So as I find myself not maintaining that self-care that I had learned, I realized there was something more than just saying I have a self-care plan. I needed to better lead my life. And I'd always been intrigued about the whole idea about leadership and what makes some people set apart from others, what makes the difference in one's life. And so I got on the path where I decided I wanted to know more about leadership, because though, as I said, I had learned about self-care, I had practiced it some, it was not fully invested in me. I did not fully invest in it, or nor did I fully kind of incorporate it in my life. And so as I learned about leadership, I think that is what made the world of difference. And that's why I like to talk to nurses about developing the leadership within you. Because what we could come away with after maybe going and meet with a coach, which might be a wonderful self-care plan, sometimes following through, there might be a disconnect. And when we learn to lead ourselves, we find that we're able to follow through with conviction and intention, whatever plan we set up in our life, whether it be a self-care plan, a business plan, or any type of plan. So that part was missing, and I incorporate that part in my life as becoming a more effective leader. And that looked like deciding to personally grow myself. How do I do that? Well, I looked at where I was and where I wanted to be. And then not just a self-care plan, but I developed a growth plan. How am I going to grow myself? How am I going to become better? How am I going to show up on the days when I don't even want to go to work, but I know I have to go? How am I going to present myself? So learning all those things for me was a game changer in my life. So not only did I now take in good self-care, but I was also developing that leader within me, where I was becoming empowered, and I was able to stand on my truth in such a powerful way that when I said boundaries that said no, they meant no.
I like you said developing the leadership within you. That's powerful. And honestly, I've never looked at developing leadership within myself as a part of my self-care regimen. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think when we think about self-care, we think about spa days and reading a book by the swimming pool, or curling up on the TV and watching a good movie. But you just presented a self-care strategy that involves leadership, which is one of those things that I don't know that a lot of people tie together as a part of it. So why, how do I want to say this? That's so good. That is so like, and I love it because Latoya talks about it too. I know Latoya is your partner in crime, and she
Yes.
talks about one thing that she always says is scheduling the appointment with like the CEO. You're the CEO. You're the most important person in your business, in your life, really. And so she talks about scheduling that appointment for you to participate in your self-care. But I've never tied leadership. Why do you feel like leadership is that little thing that you combine with self-care? I mean, I get what you're saying, but dang, that's good.
Yes. And you know what? That is such a good point you made with Dr. Latora, my friend, my colleague, my scientist nurse friend. She often says, and this is her quote, and I've borrowed it and used it with her permission, self-care is an activity of daily living.
Yes.
We know things like grooming, brushing your teeth, toilet, and all those things we learn in nursing school are activities of daily living. Well, no, self-care is one of those activities. And so while we may be able to do it, it's not things like a massage. That's a maintenance. And that's a beautiful thing if you could have a massage every month, facial, all those are good things. When I talk about self-care, I talk about what am I doing for myself to improve my physical well-being, my emotional, my mental, and my spiritual well-being. And so self-care would be things like relaxing, taking a break, setting boundaries, communicating in a way that is effective. As a nurse, when I communicate, I must communicate in a way that is effective because you know communication, if it's miscommunication, if there's miscommunication, we could cause big problem in nursing. That's life and death situation. So things like communication, things that we don't even think of. That is part of self-care. And because what we're doing, we're decreasing stress. So anything that we decrease stress, we help ourselves to feel better and healthier is self-care.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback really quickly off of the leadership aspect of it. As you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, well, who is a leader or what is a leader? And a leader is a person that leads by example. They take charge. They don't wait around. They don't make excuses. They don't wait for others to save. They stand up and, sometimes they make the right decisions. Sometimes they don't, but they are bold enough to, or should be bold enough to take the lead. And so when I think about it from a self-care standpoint as a individual person within me, right? When I think about how do I better lead me in order to better lead others, I think about how is it that I take charge over my life? How do I stand up and not wait on anybody else to come in and save me? I have got to take charge and set those boundaries or take charge and recognize I need personal growth and things like that. So I love that, Audrey. Good stuff. Good stuff. So
yes,
I want to.
Well, you said it well.
Did I get it?
You get it well. But just to add another little piece to that is that the part when I talk about developing the leader within you, that's a term that John Maxwell has a book that says developing the leader within you. I've used that book with other nurses while I do my coaching. And it's a powerful book because when we think about leading, oftentimes we think about leading others, right? We have leaders and we have followers. Well, the new paradigm in lead is how do we lead ourselves? And that is where the influence, because leadership is influence, nothing less, nothing more. And how do I influence myself? How do I influence the decisions I have to make? How am I influencing others in terms of presenting a vision to them? Because we just don't only want to have followers, we want to build leaders too. So we lead ourselves, we develop the leader within us, and also those that we lead, we help them to develop to become leaders also.
For sure.
Yes.
I like that. So let's hop over into some of these top 10 mistakes that overwhelmed nurses make. Whoo-wee. I want you to, first off, congratulations on releasing your book. So our topic today is literally based around the book that Audrey just released, which is already a bestseller. So congratulations on that. I want to dive deeper into some of these mistakes that overwhelmed nurses make, whether intentionally or not. Sometimes we do things when we're just in an overwhelmed, burned out state. So let's have a conversation about what that means.
Yes, ma'am. So one of the things that really caused me to write the book is because as I was talking about self-care and I talk about how it really started in my life, I left nursing for a brief moment in order to do self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about self-care, I think about nurses, we should be able to make self-care a priority without having to leave our profession. And that is what the book's intention is all about, is how could nurses make self-care a priority, remain in their profession with that same amount of passion and balance that is needed to be an effective nurse. And so that's why I wrote the book. And so I talked about 10 mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could highlight the very first mistake nurses make, and that is the mistake of not taking a break.
Yeah.
And you may think, wow, how is that a mistake? Yes, it is, because we don't intentionally decide we're not going to take a break. We know we're going to be working 8 or 12 hours, and we're hoping at some point we're going to have a lunch break. But there are so many nurses, and even I experience working sometimes and not having a break, barely stopping enough time to grab a bite without it sitting and having time to really enjoy that food. We just grab a bite as it is and we go right back out on the floor. So a lot of nurses operate that way because of workload, the patient nurse ratio, or because we feel guilty that if someone else is doing their work, why should we be taking break? But what we have to realize that taking break, even if it's just a 5 minutes, right? I'm not just saying stop to eat, but a break where we stop and we think about what are we doing in this moment? How am I feeling? Feel your body. I'm sure if right at this minute we were to feel our body, we'll realize that our shoulders might be up, but if we were to let it down, that's when we take a break. We get to do that.
Yeah.
Take a break to have a mindful moment to breathe. Take a break to just debrief and to rejuvenate our mind and our bodies to go back out on the floor and to be an effective nurse like we know we can. But when we don't take a break, we are not in a place where we can make always the best decision because our mind is so overwhelmed from the work, because nursing, though rewarding, we know it's very stressful. And when there's so many things, machines beeping, patients calling, co-worker asking for help, there's so many things happening. A patient coming back from the OR, one we have to send somewhere, all those different things are going on at the same time. And I'm not saying take a break in the middle when things are busy, but the moment you get a chance, that you say, okay, now I'm finished X, I'm gonna go do Y. Before you go do Y, stop, take a pause, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of breathing, mindful body scan. That does so much when we go back on that floor or when we go back to whatever task we were meaning to do. So that's the first thing I talk about, taking a break. And the breaks should be regular, not just one a shift, but if at every 2 hours we take a 5 minutes break.
That's good.
See the difference it makes. I also talk about using some stress management tools. There's many stress management tools. The one that I really like and I embrace is mindfulness. Mindfulness is such a wonderful tool. It helps you with relaxation. It helps you with stress, anxiety, and it also helps you to be aware of what's going on around you in such a way that you are now observing, you're surrounded in such a way like you didn't before. You're paying attention on purpose now. You're being intentional. And I think if we use that in nursing, even when we go to give patients their medicine, we're not just giving it and the next patient, but when we give the patients their medicine, being mindful in that moment, showing the patients the empathy, saying something to the patients more than this is your medicine. All those things incorporate with being mindful, using stress management tools. So when we come out of that room, we know the patient may complain, but when we come out, we feel not as though we had gone in and just give the medicine. We gone in and we had an encounter.
Yeah.
With that patient. And that patient, we look at that patient, this could have been my mom, my dad, my cousin, whoever. But we look at the patient differently. Mindful. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I wanted to ask you because our good friend Latora made a comment down in the chat, and so I wanted to highlight this right here. Latora said that this is great discussion. Self-care and self-maintenance are actually different, and she says she loves how you have incorporated the importance of self-care and leadership. So I want to ask you about what are the differences between self-care and self-maintenance?
Okay. Yes, there's self-care, there's self-maintenance, and then there's radical self-care. I take it even a little bit farther. The
Okay.
self-care are the things that we do to, like the way we like sleeping, having 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep, that's self-care. Drinking water, diet, exercise, all those things are self-care, right? How things our body, mind, and emotions and need to function. Now, when we do a massage, that's like an extra boost of, you have your food and then you have your vitamin. That's a maintenance. That's an extra bit of self-love we are giving ourselves. Huh? But when I talk about radical self-care, sometimes we are in such a funk, we are in such a space of dis-ease. I'm not saying that we have a diagnosis, but we're in dis-ease. We have so much stress and overwhelm in our body and our mind that we need to sometimes forego a lot of things and say, I have to take care of me in this moment. Nothing else matters but me. So I think for me, if I had practiced self-care over the years at that 15-year mark, I think what I really did then was what might have been looked at as radical self-care, because I had to walk away from nursing. I can't do it anymore. And go and take care of me. And so, yes.
That's a good
one. Thank you. Yes.
That's a good one. I want you to list or talk about one thing organizations can do. We're actually streaming on LinkedIn right now. So I know there are a lot of organizations that may be tuning in. I want you to talk about one thing that an organization can do in order to ensure that their nurses are not overwhelmed and leading to burnout.
Yes, and that's a wonderful question. I have recently started to talk with colleges, right?
That's a good one.
And to really have them look at how do we shift the culture in nursing.
Yes.
Yeah, because we know culture change takes years and years, or as I say, better yet, how do we introduce a new culture to nursing, this new culture of self-care? Because when we went to nursing school, all I was taught, and I've talked to lots of colleagues, and if you read the book has stories of 10 nurses. Each chapter have a story of a nurse encounter with a mistake that I highlight. But how could we now introduce the culture of self-care as part of the nursing curriculum?
Yes.
And that's what I'm talking to colleges about. 2 colleges I'm talking about. How can they do that? But how can a workplace and organization introduce that? One of the things I think they should allow nurses to have a space where they can go and relax, not just the nurses station, but set up spaces within the hospitals or within an organization that can be a space where a nurse can go and debrief. Also provide nurses with opportunities to attend programs that will improve their overall well-being, or they themselves bring people in to do those programs. Because oftentimes nurses are not aware of the mistakes they're making and the consequence. And so they continue to normalize whatever they're doing, and they feel, well, okay, I'm just feeling tired and fatigued. But to call it by its name and say this is a mistake and to say there is a solution, I think organizations should invest in that. So they should invest in nurses' well-being in terms of providing services for nurses. I know they have the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP, and sometimes nurses don't feel like that's a program they want to participate in if they're feeling overwhelmed or stressed beyond the point where they're not able to come to work. But I want to encourage them that, they can find someone who can talk to them. Don't think they have to cope and go it alone. They need to find someone who can support them. So workplace need to provide that. Also providing wellness programs.
Yes.
And
True.
making it part of the benefits of a person's employment package. Create wellness programs at work so that nurses could get a 10 minutes break and they can go walk. They can do certain things. And I think that will be very beneficial for nurses, helping them to get that break. Also, I think realizing the impact with nurse leaving the profession is something that they have to curb. And so therefore, how do they help with that? And I would say they definitely have to listen to nurses. Nurses know the patient load is too high. They need to reduce patient load. Also have nurses be able to take time off when they need the time off. So creating time off for the nurses, the space, creating programs within the hospital. There's mindfulness, which is a wonderful program for nurses and for anyone that's going through stressful work, going through time of overwhelm. But not just these things to come at the back end, but to be ahead of it, to be proactive about it. So I would say having support personnel there for the nurses, having the nurses have access to programs of their choice, and having, once every quarter, maybe a retreat for nurse. And, that's not a big thing when you think of the, lots of other organizations that are not as profitable as some hospitals or some big other organization. They do retreat for their staff that do not work in the stressful environment that nurses find themselves in. So I would say all those things would be part of helping to increase the morals, increase the culture, and increase the well-being of nurses and nursing as a profession.
I love it. So as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, I was like, well, golly, I can't wait till Audrey gets her hospital up and going because I want to come work at her hospital. It sounds like fun over there. We're going to have vacations and retreats and break every couple of hours. I turn my patients and then I go take a break. I love it. So I'm speaking this into existence, Audrey. Whenever you open up your hospital, I'm going to come work for you, okay?
Yes. And if you were to look at the cost of when a nurse leaves a hospital and they have to get another one, those costs goes, I see numbers like $10,000 for every nurse that leaves and they have to get the next one. And so what if they were to be proactive and hire the right amount of staffing to help nurses to be able to be effective and to really put the nurse-patient ratio at a place where nurses don't feel that they're running back and forth and they don't have time to serve their patients well. Because at the end of the day, if nurses are feeling well, they do a better job with caring for the patient.
Absolutely.
This is not just apart from it's going to help the nurse, but it's going to help the organization as a whole. We know that there's organization satisfaction. People look at those things now. Do I want to go to this organization? I see they have a 2.3 versus this one that have a 5 or a 4 star. So those are important too, I think, when you look at the bottom line too, for organization to think, well, yes, let's invest on the front part of this situation where we support nurses. Then now they have to hire, all type of marketing people to work on doing numbers, getting numbers, and having, different surveys done. But if they had done it at the beginning, it would have definitely worked out to be more profitable for them in the long run.
For sure. I like that you talked about profitability, because I wish they understood that it's literally that easy. Like, and one thing, you talked about how much it costs to, when you lose a nurse, as well as bringing on somebody new and training them and stuff, is a very costly thing. But it's also a huge safety issue. It is a huge, huge safety issue. I wish institutions recognize that losing somebody that is very well competent and experienced, because they are now overwhelmed and burnt out, is not the greatest idea to just replace them with anybody that's just, fresh out of school, or maybe doesn't know. It's really a safety concern. I'm not saying that a new grad or a new person in that area cannot perform the task and perform it at a safe level. But I am saying that when you have massive amounts of burnout and massive amounts of people leaving, then it creates an instability in the institution. It creates an instability on the floor. And then there's no continuity. It's hard to have continuity of care when you have all travelers or all new people or whatever. I remember going to an ER many years ago. I wanted to be an ER nurse. And I went and I sat in on an interview, and literally nobody, I had more experience as a nurse than they had in the ER department. Literally, there was nobody in that department that had more than 2 years of experience. They were all fresh people. And I'm like, there's no way I want to go and work in an ER department, because I'm going in there and working into this ER department as a brand new ER nurse. And I'm like, nobody has experience. Like, who's going to help me to learn the department? I'm like, I feel a little nervous and scared walking into an establishment where nobody had any tenure there. That's an issue. It is a safety concern. You do need to cherish and the people that have the experience and knowledge and have been there in that position for a while, But for whatever reason, sometimes establishments have kind of the mentality of where you're replaceable. We can replace you, and that's fine. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I think it is a very valid point. I absolutely love the work that you're doing. I wish I would have known you 20 years ago. 20 years ago.
Well, it's not too late, because every day is a new day. Every hour is an hour, and we can start from this day. And so my call for nurses is that you can do both. Because I know you have the ability to do self-care and to remain in your profession as a nurse. And that is what my call is, because we don't want what we're actually hearing. When you hear 80%, this was a survey that Medscape did just after the pandemic and 80% of the nurses they surveyed said they're thinking of leaving the profession.
Oh, yeah.
They are thinking. I was privileged to attend an alumni round table at a college. I'm not going to call the college, but there were just nurses there that was 4 years and under. The program was not in existence very long. So their oldest alumni would have been about 6 years old. But the nurses, they were 4 years, 3 years, 1 year. And they shared about what they went through during the pandemic. Not a dry eyes. At that same round table, there were some CNOs. And while I do appreciate the stance they have to take, and, they did empathize with the nurses, one of them said that, they did not lose much staff and so forth and so on, and that they felt that they had a airtight program and so on. But it was funny, that very hospital that was represented there, I was coaching a nurse that worked at that hospital, and her story was starkly different from what the CNO was saying. So we see sometimes disconnect with the those nurses that are on the floor and those that are in the boardroom, or the people that are in the boardroom. So one of the things that I really want is that hospitals, executives, they really should listen to their nurses, create that safe space. The nurses sometimes are not empowered, feeling they could share what's going on, fear of retribution.
Yep.
And that's why one of the things I talk about is you have to develop that leader within you as a nurse. You have to be able to advocate for yourself. And you have to be able to share your truth and say what's really going on in the floor and bring that light and attention to the powers that be. Because unless one person start that change and have it grow over time, we're never going to see a change in nursing. We're not going to see transformation in healthcare.
Yeah, that's for sure. The fear of retaliation is, it is one of, look, we could have a whole nother conversation about the fear of retaliation. Before we hop off really quickly, this is something that dawned on me, I think through the conversations that I've had with you and Latour throughout the years, as well as one of the coaching programs I'm in. There's I think she's a neuroscientist or something like that. But anyway, she comes and talks to our community. And something that I recognize and something that I want to just bring a little highlight to is that I experienced burnout in nursing very early on, and I remained in that level, in that stage of burnout for many, many years, right? And so when I was talking to the neuroscientist lady, she highlighted that. She said, "How long have you been in burnout?" And I told her, and then I was also starting to experience burnout in the business that I wasn't really recognizing to its full capacity, right? I didn't really know that I was getting to that level, that same level that I was in nursing. I was getting to that in business because it appeared differently. It's like in business, I could do what I want to. I could wake up when I want to. I got freedom. I could eat when I want to. So it looks a little differently in business, but if you're not careful, burnout will pop up in business too. So what I want you to do before we hop off is just to give those people, because a lot of our audience are nurses as well as business owners, give them a little bit of a tip or something that they can take away, because it can appear differently. It can show up differently in your business, but nonetheless, overwhelm and burnout are still extremely important to maintain and manage. Or I should say manage. We don't want to maintain burnout. We want to manage and get out of it.
Yes.
But just give us a tip or something that we can take away from that.
Absolutely. So when you become a business owner, for most of us, we wear many hats.
Yes.
Right? And so there comes the problem with time management. We are doing so much and there's only so many hours in the day. So one of the things I would say to anyone that's in business as a nurse, you have to manage your priorities. Not your time, because time is not going to wait for you. Time is not going to wait and say, "Oh, I'm here, come get me." No. Or no, forget about managing time. Manage your priorities. And when I say manage your priorities, be focused on your business. Now, I believe in multiple streams of income, but you shouldn't be doing multiple things, right? Like me, I got my little crypto here, my real estate investments. I even invest in AI, various things. Multiple streams is okay, but you have to be focused on one thing. And you have to be doing that one thing that you were called to do, right? So that's one thing. Manage your priority well. I don't wake up every day and be bothering about my real estate investment, because it's just there on the side, bringing money in when the month comes. So manage that one thing, right? Whatever you were called to be a specialist at, manage that one thing. Good priority in terms of management. Also, sleep. We may think that sleep is not that important, If as nurses, and that's one thing about nurses, we do understand the science of things and the biology of things, and we know about the circadian cycle, and we know about caffeine does interrupt sleep, especially if it's taken, like a few hours before, but we don't practice it. And sometimes I gotta say to myself, wish I had known these things before, because I work nights, and yes, the caffeine went down until I found myself getting palpitation with caffeine, and I no longer use it. but you have to get the sleep. You have to make sleep very important, because when you're sleep deprived, you cannot show up for your business the way you ought to be showing up. Those creative energies won't be there. That quick response would not be there, because I know when I don't get a good night's sleep, it shows the next day. Right? So that comes to with setting boundaries. My folks know I go to bed at 9. Go to bed at 9, between 9 and 10. Please do not call me after 9. I'm very serious about those boundaries. So as business people, we have to be mindful of things like sleep, how we eat, the boundaries we're setting in our businesses and in our personal life, who we're bringing in our spaces. So I would say those would be the top set of things I would advise any business person. And if you ever feel a point overwhelmed, um, sometimes you need to step back and reevaluate everything, because it's okay to change and to change course. It's okay to pivot, because maybe that business might be taking too much of you.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of it. That's why I like my mindfulness practice, because that is something I can go to any time of the day, any time of the night, wherever I am, even in a very busy place, I could have that mindfulness. So mindfulness really teaches us to pay attention to ourselves, our body,
I like that.
our thoughts. So that would be the tip. That was more than one tip, but yeah,
Yeah, we got about 5 in that.
yes, I would say, and I would say those are the things that I would definitely want to say that you would need to be aware of as a business owner.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So Eclipse Health over there on IG says priorities and boundaries. Yes. So I believe that is a wonderful place for us to conclude this excellent interview. Audrey, before you get out of here, is there any other offer, or where can we go grab the book? Let us know. How can we sign up with you? Let
Yes,
us know.
yes. Wow, what a wonderful platform you have here, Aviona. Thank you for giving the space to share. And guess what? My book is Kindle, but it will be a paperback in another 2 weeks.
All right.
Don't rush to Amazon right now. Look out for the announcement. It's going to be paperback, and it's going to be also a workbook to go alongside with the book. So you will be able to purchase both of them. I'm also going to be having a group coaching, a 10-week group coaching, where we're going to be going through the book, Top 10 Mistakes Nurses Make. And so look out for that coming. And that is going to be starting in November, because we don't believe that the first of the year should be when we turn a new page. We believe we can turn a new page at any time of the year. So we're going to start actually in November.
Okay.
Program. So look for that paperback being dropped in another 2 weeks.
Very good, very good. So thank you again. I appreciate you for hopping in and just blessing our audience as well as myself with wonderful and excellent wisdom. Again, I wish I would have known this years ago, but you said it so perfectly that today is a great day to start. And so I wanted to say thank you to those of you who are listening or watching. I just want to say thank you for tuning in. That is our time for today. Please, by all means, follow us across all of our social media platforms. But more importantly, make sure that if you are not within our Facebook group, Black Nurse Entrepreneurs, that you get over there, because we have these types of conversations. And then you can get to connect and network with Audrey even better, right? So thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody that we do not follow trends, but we are the trend. We are trendsetters. And so I want us to be very intentional about the things that we're doing in healthcare and in business, in our communities, in order to change the paradigm of how we deliver these things to each other, right? So thank you again. Much love to you. And I can't wait to see you for the next episode, Miss Audrey.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.